Good. Okay, the time is now 3:05. I'd like to call the Community Development Committee meeting to order. And as customary, let's bow our heads for a moment of silence or meditation. Thank you. Amen. And you have public participation. We have anyone from the public who wanted to speak? Brittany?
No, sir. No one signed up to speak and no one left any comments.
Okay. We move right on along. So down in letter B, we have approval of the minutes of June 6th and June 20th, 2024.
Second.
It was moved in second. All in favor by voting, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Now we move down to old business. We have one item under old business, which is a resolution authorizing the transfer of revolving funds awarded by grant number 0449040099 and grant number 0479073537 to the Klein Funds for consideration. Who's going to present that? Is that going to be?
That would be me, Councilmember Mitchell.
All right. Okay, Amy.
How are you this afternoon?
Good, you? All righty.
Good, thanks. These are two revolving loan funds that we have through the EDA that we had given to the LDC, but now it's the Klein Fund to administer small business loans. The EDA has asked that we transfer those funds to the Klein Fund. The city has no administrative anything to do with these revolving loan funds at all. We have no control over them. We don't have any real involvement in the loan funds at all. So we would like to transfer them over to the Klein Fund to have them have complete administrative control over those funds.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, it was moving second. All in favor vote by saying aye.
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 Ayes have it. We move on down to
Thank you.
new business. Thank you, Amy. The new business, we have a discussion of update neighborhood council policies and programs. And Rebecca Hopkins, who's the manager of the neighborhood services, will be explaining that.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Y'all did move really fast. You got through all the old business. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so that I can give y'all a presentation. Okay, can y'all see this okay?
Oh, yes.
Great. For anyone who doesn't know me, I think that most of y'all know me. My name is Becca Hopkins, and I'm the Neighborhood Services Manager for the City of Charleston. So my main role is liaising with all the neighborhood associations and helping them solve community problems, kind of acting as a conduit of information, going to the residents, and then coming back up to city staff from residents. So today I want to talk about some clarifications to neighborhood services policy, as well as a new program, and just allow y'all to ask any questions that you might be interested in. I'm also going to talk about, with regard to the new program, I'm going to talk about some kind of broad trends that we're seeing in neighborhood associations, but I'm not going to talk about any specific neighborhood associations. So moving on. And I'm also going to go through some definitions really fast. First, I'm going to talk about the neighborhood council a lot in this presentation. The neighborhood council is the group of associations, of neighborhood associations that the city has recognized as having standing within the neighborhood council. So basically, they have proved to us at some point that they are organized and they have bylaws, they have meetings, and some of them may not be as active anymore, but at some point they put in an application to show that they were organized enough to be having meetings and elected board members. The neighborhood commission is the appointed body of residents that oversees the neighborhood council, especially with regard to admitting new neighborhood associations into the neighborhood council. So annually, I reach out to y'all to see, y'all being city council and the mayor, to see if you would like to reappoint the same commission member from last year, or you would like to appoint someone different. A neighborhood association it doesn't have to be in anything legal. It doesn't have to be incorporated or a 501c3. It can be 20 people meeting in someone's garage because they want to do some community improvements in their neighborhood. We just ask that they exhibit a certain level of organization before we admit them to the neighborhood council. And a homeowners association is a legal entity that usually comes along with legal covenants and restrictions. The history of this, I'm just gonna touch on it just for some context. In 1977, Mayor Riley asked City Council to come up with a resolution to support this program, the original program being called the Citizen Participation Plan, in order to make it easier for city staff to communicate with organized groups of residents and for residents to communicate more effectively with the city of Charleston. And that purpose remains pretty much why we maintain this program, is we want to make sure that we're communicating with residents and that residents have a place where they can go and problem solve together. They can come to a consensus, hopefully, and then express their opinions to their elected officials.
Can you do me a quick favor? Could you just distinguish again between the neighborhood council and the neighborhood association for me?
Sure. So the neighborhood council is made up of neighborhood associations. The neighborhood associations are the actual individual independent organizations like Burnstown Neighborhood Association, Wagner Terrace, etc. The neighborhood council is all of them, all the ones that have been recognized together in a group. That's just the name of the group. It's kind of an awkward name, but there you go.
But the neighborhood association is not a legal entity. Did I hear you say that?
It can be, but it's not necessarily. It can be an informal group of people, but it doesn't have to be like a 501c3, and it doesn't have to be an HOA. Councilwoman Parker, do you have a question?
I wasn't quite. I had a follow-up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, so the neighborhood association doesn't necessarily have to have bylaws.
It does.
It does have to have bylaws, right?
Yes.
Okay, and can those bylaws require that anyone that votes have to be a homeowner and are a member of the association?
So you're getting into some of the challenges that we've been experiencing over the past few years, which is basically that we didn't have any clarity on requiring neighborhoods to do something to like have their membership be open to a specific group of people or not in order to be part of the neighborhood council. So as it stands, we recommend within the new policy or the clarified policy that I'm going to show y'all, and that's in the agenda, that it be open to all residents above the age of 16. But we can't really make them do anything because they are independent organizations.
And when you say open, you mean open for membership?
That's correct, sir.
Right.
That'd be renters and property owners.
Mm-hmm.
So that's both renters and property owners?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. That's the clarity that I'm trying to get here, because some of the associations are pretty strict. And I think some of them are still implementing that you have to be a homeowner. And I don't have to tell you which one I'm talking about either, right?
No, but and we can talk about that offline.
Okay,
I don't want to call anyone out on here.
right.
But yeah, so that is one thing, is we just wanted to give ourselves some clarity in that regard.
Okay.
Councilwoman Parker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the commission and the council, it just seems like, I mean, how many times does each group meet?
So the council meets, each part of the neighborhood council meets by geographic area. So we have 6 meetings a year for each part of the council all over the city. So that's basically south of the Septima P. Clark Parkway, and then north of it, Daniel Island has one. Daniel Island Cane Hoy has one. Johns Island and James Island is one, which you attended last year. And there's 3 in West Ashley.
But
And-
okay, go ahead.
Sorry, the neighborhood commission usually only meets once a year to admit new neighborhood associations and vote on the Robert Ballard Award. But we do sometimes call special meetings to talk about stuff that I need their input on, because it's pretty much, for the most part, it's made up of really experienced people who have been doing community organizing for a long time and are neighborhood presidents or former neighborhood presidents. So I really value their expertise.
Okay, so follow-up question. So a lot of these, like, I don't ever know when these are.
Well,
And
Okay.
I don't get any follow-up information of what these, so it seems like we have, there's a commission and a council, which is great, and then we have citizen services desk, and they're utilizing you. I mean, what's the sort of organizational flow here, like, so then, does that make sense?
Sure. So this is kind of an opportunity for residents to speak, at least when they work with me, they speak directly to staff, right? But I know that you work closely with a lot of the neighborhood associations too, because they tell me that they have reached out to you. We're pretty much just a different outlet for them to get to the city. I always tell my neighborhood presidents and any residents that reach out to me that I can help you with things like, or I can help you navigate city services that already exist. But when it comes to things that are going to require a budget change, that's when or something that might require multiple agencies working together or multiple departments, that's when it's really important to have the advocacy of your city council person. And so that's when I always encourage them to reach out to you. So I don't, these meetings with the sector meetings, they're usually just with the mayor. And that way we kind of keep it to like things that staff can fix. But when it's a political issue that's going to require a budget change, that's usually, I believe, when residents call y'all in.
Okay, thanks. Just 2 follow-up questions. What is the budget for these? Like, what is the cost?
So
I'm curious.
oh, sure. So these are all independent organizations, so we do not fund them.
But isn't there like a party or an end of the year celebration?
Sure. I think, yeah, we've had dinners for them annually so that they have a chance to network with each other, especially people in different geographic areas of the city. I mean, since we usually use one of our free events from the Segre Club. We don't have to, I don't think that we have to pay for the actual venue, but of course we pay for food and stuff. I don't remember exactly what our budget is, but I can get it to you if you would like to see it.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And then just my last question. So what exactly are the proposed changes again? I apologize. I cut out a little bit earlier. I think
Nope.
are you going to get to that?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're not
thank you.
really, just to clarify, we're not really changing anything. We're just clarifying what exists. and trying to make it easier to understand.
And if I may just follow up on Councilmember Caroline's issue with respect to dollars.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure whether or not all neighborhood associations do this, but I know many of mine do, and they do it through raising money through fundraisers, through dues. I have some neighborhood associations that have as much as $40,000 in their savings. And of course, that's used for various kinds of activities. So I'm just trying to react to Councilmember Caroline's question regarding funding. And then lastly, while limited, council members now get a budget that they can spend on some of these neighborhood association activities. Am I correct? I think we all get what, 2,600 or something?
Something like that.
And that we can sort of help in supplementing and supporting many of the neighborhood associations activities with those dollars. Again, just responding to Councilmember Parker's question with regard to funding.
Okay.
Any other questions before Rebecca goes?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, Councilmember Gregory, I don't know. I was just wondering what the city has allocated, not whatever private homeowners associations do with those funds.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
that's up to them. I was just wondering what the city side is providing.
Just
Gotcha.
normally just support.
Yeah, we don't give any financial support to the neighborhood associations unless it's through like a specific grant program, which I'm going to get to. Kind of what we touched on just now in conversation is that there are a lot of kind of confusing groups out, like, so for example, homeowners associations, neighborhood association, neighborhood council, all of those things were not really well defined in the policy documents that we've been working with really since for almost the past 50 years. And so we kind of, every time I went to run a neighborhood commission meeting or was confronted with a question about how to address a problem within the neighborhood council, I would go through these two documents that were decades old. And then I would also try to look through our notes to see if we had any precedent. And then for those of y'all that knew Sue Griffin, I still call Sue Griffin to ask her what to do. But there are just kind of a lot of vague elements to these policy documents that didn't define terms, and they didn't provide guidance on kind of some specific issues, for example, membership, which Councilman Gregory brought up. They focused in particular really strongly on procedure for how to run the neighborhood commission meetings. Oops. So the process by which we revised those documents into a single policy document was first to go and look at other benchmark cities, either for their policies or if they have an actual ordinance in place. So one thing that I noted earlier, but I might not have emphasized it, was that this program was created by a policy resolution and not by an ordinance, which is, it gives us a certain amount of flexibility. But there's kind of, that's a double-edged sword, right? Having flexibility. So I went through and looked at other cities' ordinances, and I talked to legal. I also ran it by the neighborhood commission to get to see what those community leaders thought about the document. And then I really focused when I was writing this to define the terms that I discussed earlier and talk about how they relate to each other within this program and in the context of this program, with particular emphasis on what the neighborhood commission should be doing, how they admit new neighborhood associations, and then what the neighborhood associations are responsible for once they have standing within the neighborhood council. I also went through and looked at what services or the Office of Neighborhood Services offers, and wanted to put that in this policy document. I went through our code of ordinances to make sure I wasn't missing anything. So for example, I know that it's pretty standard for our BZA to encourage anybody who's requesting a variance to go talk to the neighborhood association to kind of get consensus from their neighbors. So that kind of thing is something that I put in there. Are there any questions about this page? Okay. And then, so the second thing that I want to talk about is a pilot program that we've been running this year to help neighborhood associations that are experiencing internal conflict. And I just want to have the caveat. So the ladies in this photo are not from a neighborhood association that had that's having internal conflict. They're from East Oak Forest, which is doing great. I didn't want to call anyone out. So East Oak Forest is like a very smooth running neighborhood association. And I'm going to talk about, this is what when I mentioned that I was going to talk about broad trends, this is what I'm going to do in this section, because I don't want to air anyone's frustrations with internal conflicts in their neighborhood association, because I know that it can be very, very stressful for the residents. So if y'all want to talk to me about that, as we have before, please reach out to me directly. But there, as y'all well know, there have been several neighborhood associations that have been going through a lot of change over the past few years. And I will often be CC'd on emails kind of detailing the frustrations that they're going through. And because, as I mentioned earlier, these are independent organizations that we recognize, but we don't oversee. We can't go in and tell them what to do and how to run their organization. And legal has advised me to extremely not do that. So I would get these emails or calls, and I'd feel really, really bad for not having anything to offer these residents who were clearly very passionate about their neighborhood association and kind of understood the importance of having a voice in these situations. So I reached out, I did some research, and I reached out to a nonprofit called the Mediation and Meeting Center of Charleston, or MMCC. Hold on one sec, please. So I kind of cold called them, and they were very, very receptive to working with us. They were very excited about it because they were in the middle of expanding their programming, and they're kind of growing right now. So I worked with their board and with our legal staff to create a memorandum of understanding for the pilot program. And I also worked with them to create some eligibility guidelines so that we could make sure that we were being consistent in the way that we did this. So basically what we do is we will pay for up to 15 hours of mediation with neighborhood associations to try and help those residents and the neighborhood association reach their goals. So for example, there is a neighborhood association that has been having trouble getting through meetings because they Thank you. They've been having trouble getting through meetings, and they want to rewrite their bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to help them get through, be able to get to the point where they can actually function enough to write the bylaws so that they can have kind of new group norms that they're agreeing on, so they can keep having effective meetings.
Okay. Councilman Parker, you had your hands up?
No,
Oh,
no,
I
I'm
saw-
sorry.
oh, I
I don't
saw-
think so.
I saw
don't
the
think
hand.
so.
Yeah, it's still up. I saw it still up. Okay, with these neighborhood association, and normally they would have to normally they turn the things over to the city once they have voted the board members in, and so far as the president, vice president, whomever the case may be. So are they still doing that? Are they still going by that?
As in reporting when they've had elections and when
Right.
they've updated their bylaws.
Their bylaws and stuff. And
So
are they?
most of them do. It's all self-reported. So I put out a call every January to ask people for any records that they have not sent me.
Right.
So there are cities where their Office of Neighborhood Services has 5 of me, and they probably have better reporting from their neighborhood associations.
After the end of the meeting.
But I feel like we have we have some pretty active ones, and they, for the most part, yeah, they do report it. I just try to send out reminders once in a while so that we get more reporting from people.
Okay. Moving right along.
I have one more question.
Yes, Councilman Gregory?
If a neighborhood association becomes a 501c3, a quote unquote community development corporation, can they apply directly to the city for certain funding sources, such as maybe community development, community outreach? I mean, are there dollars then that they can compete for as a nonprofit?
I think that they already do, though.
Yes.
And I'm not a lawyer, but it sounds like yes.
Well, the reason I asked the question is I do know that we do have some that we have provided support resources, but in most cases, there were either community development corporation / 501c3 and competed publicly for assistance from the city. Again, I'm just trying to put out there that there are some potential sources for them if they went formally and became a 501c3. They should be able to compete directly for city resources.
Yes, and not only city resources, but also Coastal Community Foundation has a grant called the New Fund, or Neighborhoods Energized to Win, that is pretty much geared for grassroots groups and neighborhood associations. So yes, if they incorporate to a 501c3, or even if they just have a fiscal sponsor, it does kind of smooth things for them.
Because the community foundation have participated in funding neighborhood associations who wanted to develop signs.
Yes, and benches and stuff like that.
Yes, and they funded them directly. And I'm just sort of sharing that with my colleagues, as we meet with our neighborhood associations, to try to sort of let them know how they can compete for resources depending upon what their legal status is.
No, they also can apply for money through the city through the tax and things like that too.
Yes,
they apply for those because a couple of neighborhood associations that I attended, they applied for it. They received the funds also. So those are funds that they can apply for also with the 501c3.
I'd like to just say how impressed I've been with the whole department and Ms. Hopkins in particular. And I've been going to these events or functions for 6 months now, and they're, I think, very helpful, very impactful, get a lot of good feedback, and a lot of follow-up and action items that come out of them. So just want to say, you know, take an opportunity to just say how impressed I've been with this whole department at the city, and certainly support what they're trying to do here.
Okay.
Thank you,
Councilman
sir.
McBride, do you have a question?
Yeah, Becca, thanks for that presentation. I'm glad you introduced yourself and this whole presentation, because this is another great aspect of the city that I didn't know about yet. This is really potentially helpful. Do you mind going back to the definition slide at the beginning of your presentation?
These are also the definitions, like the full definitions are also in the agenda in the actual policy documents, if you'd like to read them more specifically.
Okay. So then just to rehash, the neighborhood association is a collection of it's regions, it's regional, and incorporate neighborhood or incorporate HOAs. Multiple HOAs will be in a neighborhood association. Is that right? Generally speaking.
An HOA kit. So think about the word neighborhood association is kind of an umbrella term for any group of individuals that are geographically kind of centered, or they're focused on a specific geographic area that is trying to solve problems and pull resources together. So the definition that I have in the policy document is any independent, autonomous, organized group of persons who own, reside, or have a place of business in a discrete geographic area. This may include, but is not limited to, homeowners associations, civic associations, or local development corporations.
Okay, and as I think you said, right now, Johns Island and James Island is one neighborhood association.
No, they have multiple neighborhood associations that have applied for and received standing within the neighborhood council, but they are one sector, which is a little confusing. So if we had a meeting with Mayor Coxwell and all the neighborhood associations showed up, that would be longer than an hour and a half, which is generally how long the meetings are. So we do them by area. So we do James and Johns Island together.
Okay. Do you also have all contacts from all the official HOAs, homeowners associations in Charleston?
The homeowners associations are kind of harder to nail down. I have a not current and not exhaustive list of property managers that I try to keep current. But they have a fair amount of turnover for some reason.
Yeah. Okay. I'd love to meet with you just offline, just to kind of pull the thread more on this, because
Sure.
one of the things that I've been trying to do from the very beginning, because District 3 has an overwhelming percentage of District 3 is HOAs, particularly because Johns Island has so many new neighborhoods, and in the city portion, almost all of them are HOAs. My James Island portion, I think majority is HOAs as well. And in an effort to communicate efficiently with as much as my constituents, one way I was thinking about has been trying to do that is through HOA boards, for really important information, both back and forth. If I can communicate something to all the HOA boards, and then it's up to them, of course, it's up to them what they do with that. But if they communicate with their HOA members, that's a really great way to cover a whole lot of constituents, and then also receiving information back from them. So anyway, that's kind of separate from what you're talking about the funding and all that stuff, but I would love to meet with you offline and just kind of understand more about how all these organizations play into each other and, yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm just thinking out loud.
Oh, no problem. I'd be happy to, and the like communications, getting information to and from neighborhoods is what I do. So happy to talk about that.
Hey, Beck, you have a listing of all the neighborhood associations and HOAs. Don't we have over 100 and something of them?
So at the moment, more than 120 neighborhood associations have, since this program started, applied for and received standing within the neighborhood association or within the neighborhood council, sorry.
Okay.
But that, I mean, we have total more than like 400 neighborhoods
Yes.
across the city. So I don't have contact information for all of them, but I'm always working on my list.
I guess that the chairman. Oh, okay, we heard your conversation, Chairman. You're on mute now. You're on mute, Mr. Chairman.
I had someone just came knocking on the door and ringing the bell, so I'm running back and forth.
Okay.
We have any other questions? No other questions?
Just a quick one, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So Becca, just again, following up, maybe like an org chart showing, so it's commission, then council. And so we should send them to you to be on the commission and then the council? The commission decides the council?
Not quite. So you already have, or last year, you appointed a commission member already.
That's the commission. Okay.
Yes. And then
Because she's not on the council.
no, but she's one of the people who votes to admit new neighborhood associations to the council.
Okay. Okay. And then maybe, I mean, if you're doing this policy and reorg, because the sector thing is quite confusing. I mean, Councilmember McBride, do not feel bad. I've been here 2.5 years and I barely know about this. So is there, the sector thing I think can be really confusing. Is that something that can maybe, be looked at?
Christopher Morgan would really like us to rename the sectors, and because right now they're just numbered. The problem is trying to come up with names that make sense, that kind of speak for themselves. So for example, sector 6 is James Island and Johns Island. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the format of how you, like, if you want to, maybe you could call them James and Johns Island.
Well, I guess just quickly, I mean, why wouldn't it be like districts, District 1, District 12?
Maybe so as to not get it mixed up with the city council districts and the like police team districts. It was before my time. Okay. I think that the word sector is not a great descriptor either. But I do think that we don't want to confuse with the other districts that exist, but I agree that it's not great terminology. It's very bureaucratic. I'm certainly open to suggestions for better ones.
Right. Is there any other questions? No
hey, Councilman. Councilman,
yes.
This is Dan.
Yeah,
if I can echo the mayor's sentiment, Rebecca, you did a great job today. Also do a great job for the city. I've been directly involved with this neighborhood services since 2001, and it's really strengthened community relations. And that's the bottom line of the purpose, is to strengthen these community relationships with the community. But I just wanted to add that how that group does a good job for us, and we appreciate it.
All right, thank you for the observation. Any other questions, observation before we see the close? Mr. Mayor, you have anything else to say? Good. Anybody else? If not, we will take that as information. And if you have other questions, you can get with Ms. Becca Hopkins pertaining to neighborhood association, because I know she's working on some of my neighborhood associations, because I have some problems. So we'll see if we can straighten those things out. So if we don't have any other questions, meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you.